Oh, hi all, welcome back to the 1 minute farming videos. And carrying on from the last video, we were talking about what had failed on the John Deere BN Governor. And if I zoom in on that, you can see that this forked arm has a definite bend in the in the tail of it next to the pliers. So it has bent, and that is what's caused the governor arm and that to become out of sync with everything else. That's maybe better. So yeah, so that should be obviously flat through its plane, but it has this bend. So as you can see, the governor has gone off the bench. It's now back on the tractor. I put it back on the other night. So we'll go down to the tractor. You're going to have to I'm going to have to maybe shout a bit louder tonight because we are having quite a windy evening, and so we're at the noisy end of the shed. So I do apologise if you can hear the doors banging. So those big old doors there keep rattling away. So here we have the governor fitted on the back of the tractor, back onto the tractor. Remembering to connect that oil feed line up inside the crankcase. You have to go through here to get to it. And then when you line it all back up, make sure that the fan is not catching the shroud. Otherwise it'll make a hell of a noise when you come to start it. So, initial setup of the throttle rods that I've done on this one is I've got the throttle slightly open, throttle arm slightly open, with the throttle shut right off. When the engine starts up, they generally will pull round to a closed position, and that is when you adjust that little screw there up against the spring. Now when they're running, you do need them a little bit of tension on them, because otherwise you get what they call hunting. The tractor, the governor is opening and closing all the time, and it's just a knock-on effect back to the throttle. So it's still probably will need some adjustment, but I don't think I'll be a million miles away with how it's set up at the moment. So that is how I would set it up now. The throttle lever is pulled right back, so it's on tick over. I initially adjust this short one to get that position there. And if we open the throttle, as we've mentioned in the past, fully open, so we open the throttle fully back like that. That has now put tension into the spring on the governor arm. You will notice that the governor arm is now back to where it should be, near enough parallel with the back of the governor. And if we lift, I've set this arm up, this rod up, and if we lift the rod off now, you can see it's about half a hole out. Half a hole out. And that's roughly where you need to be. If you remember when we had the problem before, the end of the rod here was actually sitting on top of the exhaust manifold. So by putting in that old forked lever, fork back in here, it has obviously brought all this back into alignment, got us the adjustment that we need back on the carburettor there. And now the fork is sitting much nearer to touching the thrust bearing and the brass sleeve that moves that we showed in the last video. So hopefully now the governor has much more control back over the engine when it comes under load and when you're trying to start it. Because when you try and start these tractors, obviously I start them with a little bit of throttle, something like that. But the problem I was having before was because the governor has had no real input over the throttle. The throttle was stopping open like that, and he was flooding the engine. He was letting far too much fuel in, and so the engine was flooding quite easily. But now, once the engine starts, the governor weights will work, and the pull on the engine will close the throttle down. I mean, all these engines have their own little curious ways to starting. Some don't like any throttle, some like a lot of throttle on the hand lever. But this one, generally, if I remember right, just wanted this little lever to between. If you can imagine, that's 12 o'clock. It just wanted the arm here between 12 and 1, and generally it would start. So yeah, so hopefully we have cured the problem. Now I'm going to have to be careful at the bonnet when we put the bonnet when we put it back on. It will sit on these rubbers. I might find some washers just to lift it up, so that the arm is not binding on the back of the dashboard, on the back of the hood. Got to make sure that's not binding. So I need to do that. But really, after that, it's just a case of putting it back together. So we've got the fan shaft governor back on. The next thing will be to put the air cleaner and the air cleaner stack back, the crankcase breather pipe, the bend, the 90-degree bend for the carburettor, and so on and so forth. Check that you've tightened your crankcase plate back down. So remember to tighten that oil feed up in there as well. The other thing as well, that little fork thing that we have replaced, if we go back up to the top end of the workshop, so we go back up through here. The rain has turned up again, unfortunately, so the dry weather has disappeared, which is annoying. But there you go. Seems to be the pattern of the weather we're having at the moment. So yes, so we discussed this. Yes, this is the one that's bent. The two screws that fix this to that shaft that drops down inside the governor, I would always advise to put a little bit of Loctite on them, because they're not the easiest to tighten. And a bit of Loctite will just ensure that they don't come slack on you. The last thing you want is that dropping off inside the governor. Also, you need to adjust how that sits over the brass sleeve. You want it so that it's sitting so that the brass sleeve is not fouling on either of these two lugs. And you do that by undoing that pinch bolt. Oh, excuse me, that pinch bolt, and just moving it up or down slightly, and this will sit nicely with the brass on the brass sleeve. You do not want it touching. So yeah, so there we have it. So aftermarket failed part. Oh well, it is what it is. Okay, hope that was of interest. As I say, I'll get those bits put back on, and then the bonnet dropped on, and hopefully we'll have it running. Probably not tonight, but in the next day anyway. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.